Recording. Hi guys, it's Tiffany with GF Mom Certified and Thrive Clean, and this morning I am super excited as it is National Diabetes Awareness Day to have Kaili Harding with us, who is a former beauty pageant queen and still so beautiful. Good morning, Kaili.
Hi, how are you?
I am fabulously well. How are you this morning?
I'm good. Happy National Diabetes Awareness Day.
So go ahead, and I want you to introduce yourself to those that may not know you.
Okay, so I'm Kylie, and I am a mom of two girls and a stepmom of three. And my youngest daughter is a type 1 diabetic. She was diagnosed many years ago when she was 3 years old. So we are sort of old hat now living with the disease. However, it is definitely one of those diseases that you have to keep up with because it presents challenges every day. And, as your kids are growing up and their bodies are changing, you sort of have to change the way you treat it. But I work from home. I am so blessed to be able to own my own company. And it gives me the freedom to be able to do things like this and be able to help tonight with the fantastic event that's going on. And I'm so excited about that too.
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit about that at the end. I am super excited. I wish I was driving to the city now, but then I would be like, what am I doing until it starts? So
I know, right?
we're super excited. Tell us, how are you? You mentioned a little bit your daughter's type 1 diabetic. How did you guys find that out?
Okay, so she was diagnosed, like I said, when she was 3 years old, and it was in the summertime. She was diagnosed on July 28th in 2011. And if you are a mom and you have kids, you completely can understand how in the summertime, they're running around, it's hot, they're thirsty, they get tired, they get lethargic because they've been outside and it's been hot. But my daughter's symptoms were sort of to the extreme. And I'll give you an example. About 2 days before she was diagnosed, we went to go see the movie Cars 2. It had just come out. And we went to the movie theater, and she had to go to the bathroom 3 times during the movie,
Wow.
which, kids have to go to the bathroom sometimes, but 3 times was a lot. And then she would also do things like she would eat like an entire meal and then still be hungry and eat really a large portion size meal and then still be hungry afterwards, which a lot of people don't realize are two really indicative symptoms of diabetes. It's a constant thirst that you cannot quench. And it's your body constantly feeling hungry because your body's getting rid of all of those carbs and ketones and things, because that's what it's trying to do to keep you alive, because your pancreas has stopped working.
Yeah.
So my daughter, when she was diagnosed, sadly, and this happens a lot, she wasn't in a diabetic coma, but was heading there. So we went to the doctor's office and we were transferred immediately to the ER when they took her blood sugar, and it was above 600. So, which, like me and you, an average person without diabetes is going to have a blood sugar of around 80 to 100, depending on when we ate last. And with her being at 600, they were like, no wonder she's lethargic. And we didn't realize it, again, because it's summertime and some of the factors like a suntan kind of hid the fact that she was jaundiced. My daughter was yellow, and we didn't realize it. And, that's the thing that I talk about a lot with diabetes when I go out and talk to moms or school groups or school nurse groups, or when I go to DC with the American Diabetes Association or with the JDRF. We talk a lot about symptom awareness because there's a lot of those symptoms that are really missed or are hidden, because for some people, they're not going to be like with huge alarm bells going off. It's going to be some subtle symptoms that, when all added together, really point to a diabetic diagnosis. And so I was really lucky that we were able to catch it before it ended up in a diabetic coma, because sadly, some of our friends have dealt with that being the scenario when their children were discovered to have diabetes. It was because they were in the back of an ambulance or back of a helicopter being rushed to a hospital because their kid had passed out at school or at sports practice or what have you.
I completely relate. I actually got goosebumps there for a minute. So diabetes for me hadn't really affected me until about a year ago. Like
Hmm.
my summer camp buddy had a pump. It was under control. Her mom worried
Right.
that we were kids and we were like, yeah, whatever.
Right.
But a year ago, actually December 6th, my husband went into the emergency room. We thought he was having a heart attack.
Yeah.
He was lethargic. He was constantly thirsty. He had numbness. He was complaining about not being able to breathe, and he was sweating like profusely.
Hmm.
And we got to the ER with this. We think he's having a heart attack. His dad had died from a stroke. They rushed all the blood work, came back. Again, his blood sugar was up above 600. And he went into a DKA, which is the coma for type 2.
Right.
We spent 6 days at the ICU.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's like, as you say that, I haven't experienced it with one of my children, but my biggest fear was I don't want to be a single mom. Like my
Right.
oldest was in 2nd grade and I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So,
and that's the sad thing with diabetes is that it does take lives. And in fact, it is one of the largest killers in the US. And a lot of people don't think about just diabetes being sometimes a death sentence. However, if you're not managing it and you're not taking care of yourself, it can quickly couple with other diseases. It can couple with a stroke. It can couple with heart disease. And it just exacerbates the symptoms of that. And, especially older people, if they're not paying attention to their health, it can be really detrimental.
mhm.
But that goes with children too. There's a lot of kids and this is something that I worry about as a mom with the daughter that's on the cusp of being a teenager is, they start getting a little bit tired of having to do the constant checks and the upkeep that is required with diabetes, which let me tell you, it's a job. I mean, it's a lot of work that you have to do. And, I'm glad that my daughter was diagnosed when she was young because she really doesn't remember her life without having the disease. However, I know that she already has times where, she gets a little lazy on the checking
Mhm.
or, she'll not check for a little while or not check before she eats or something like that. And then kind of does a guesstimation on what her bolus should be or how much insulin she
Yeah.
should have post meal. And I worry about that as they go through their teenage years and then into college and young adulthood, where they have to be really solely responsible for their health and taking care of themselves. And I can get that. I relate as an adult myself, where there's just those days where you're just like, I can't even adult today. And so I can totally get how, like your husband or other adults living with a disease can go through that type of thing too. But man, it's a slippery slope with diabetes. And I'm sure you've seen it with your husband where,
Yeah.
everything's fine one minute and then the next minute, like things start the wheels start falling off,
Yeah. I mean, yes, definitely. The idea that it has no cure, right? And
Right.
it's not just and it doesn't happen at a certain age. Like a lot of people think of other things when we talk about cardiometabolic, like hypertension that happens when you get old, right? But diabetes can start from when you're born, because some kids are diagnosed, I know, 1 and 2 days old, to people are getting diagnosed in their 80s. So it can affect
Right.
you at any
Right.
age. But again, like you said, there's no cure. So how do you become your own advocate?
Yeah. Well, I think one of the things that you have to do to become an advocate is to let people tell their stories around you and to understand what other people are going through. I always talk with my family about how I know that we're blessed that my daughter has been diagnosed at a young age and that we're kind of all aware of what the symptoms are. And I have to say, there's been a lot of really good built-in support that the JDRF and the American Diabetes Association, the two largest resources, I would say, for families living with diabetes, both type 1 and type 2, can use when they're first diagnosed. So I would say at the beginning, look and lean on those type of organizations. They have a lot of mentors that are around, that are families that have gone through it, that can help you through. If you're type 2 and you've been diagnosed as an adult, same thing. There's a lot of different support groups. I know that within a lot of the different endocrinology practices. So the endocrinologists are the ones that help with a type 1 or type 2 diagnosis because it's an autoimmune disease. And, I know that they also have a lot of support groups as well. And, for a lot of people, I think that they need to realize that there is a community out there and there are other people talking about ideas and resources. everything from sharing recipes to like when we found it to be completely helpful when we went to Disney World, and there were people that had come up with the carb count on just about every single snack you could buy at the Magic Kingdom and most of the menu items. Like there's resources like that out there for people living with diabetes if they just look. And I think that there's a lot of websites, Facebook groups, that type of thing that you can join and be a part of. But that's how I say become an advocate, is start arming yourself with information. And then the next step is to do things like what we're doing now, which is talking about diabetes, talking about National Diabetes Awareness Month and Awareness Day, which is today, and the month is the entire month of November, and let people know about your story with diabetes. Because I know that when I talk about my daughter's diagnosis, it helps other people be cognizant and aware of maybe their children's or their families' medical habits or behaviors to see if there's any of those that look like they could be mimicking type 1 diabetes. I think if I had known about the symptoms sooner, I probably would have been able to spot my daughter's diabetes diagnosis way before, a couple weeks or something before. And I think that that's a way that you can save lives potentially, is by talking about it and making people aware.
Yeah, I think advocacy is, talking, stories, sharing, and also like being okay with sharing your own stories as your daughter gets older, right? Or as my husband goes through, he's got stuff to work through mentally, but being okay with telling people you have this disease, because then those people become advocates for you as well. But you have to be open about sharing things that you may not be comfortable with sometimes.
Right. Yeah. And, I think for my daughter, she went through all of elementary school being the only kid in her entire school that had type 1 diabetes, which I have to say that's a blessing, because that means that none of the other kids do. However, it made her feel very singular and very different. And so one of the things I have to say is, if they can kind of find their own community, which we're very blessed that she's been able to attend the diabetes camps that happen every summer that the ADA puts on. And these are national camps that happen. So in just about every state, there is a camp that kids can go to so that they're around other kids that live with diabetes. And they have kids in there that have both type 1 and type 2. So they, which is sad to say that there are children living with type 2 diabetes, but I mean, that's part of the world that we're living in. Specifically in the United States, we have the largest prevalency of juveniles living with type 2 diabetes of anywhere else in the world. And I think it really goes to show that, we've lost focus on health and nutrition in this country. And I think that we need a lot of work on that as well.
Yeah, that's another key point. So our care team, like for my husband, includes his endocrinologist and includes his primary care. He's got a functional medicine practitioner. And then he's got a registered dietitian that he checks in with like every 6 months right now. And I think having that support group is also a key component for people being able to thrive with the disease.
Yes.
Yeah. So what does National Diabetes Day mean, or National Diabetes Month mean for you and your family?
Well, for us, basically, I mean, it is a good time to reflect and talk about how far we've come and what our story is with diabetes. Again, I'm not one of those people that wants to dwell and complain about the bad things that have happened. I think that one of the things that we like to talk about as a family is the fact that we are living with it and we cope with it, I think, very well. But it's a good time right now to do fundraising. That's one of the things that my family also focuses on. We're very involved with diabetes awareness groups. So my daughter and I go to Washington, D.C. every March as part of the ADA Capitol Hill tour. So we do go and speak to congressmen and senators, and it's this time of year that we start talking about that trip. It's just a few short months away now, like 5 months. And we help the ADA do fundraising so that we can, pay to have people that are able to pay their way to go. For this day specifically, when it comes up, I do, as a mom, often get a little misty-eyed thinking about my daughter being diagnosed in July of 2011, and really how it was so unexpected. We don't have other family members that live with it, and how it really has changed our life. Now, I'm not going to sit here and dwell and be like, wow, everything's worse now because of this. I mean, there's a lot of gifts that we have gotten through this as well. My daughter is extremely smart and able to care for herself. I think that her math skills have only been elevated because you do math all day long living with diabetes. Like, basically you come up with an equation that you have to solve every time that you need to give yourself a bolus, which is when you give yourself insulin after a meal. You've got to do all these configurations and calculations based on how many carbs you ate and what your blood sugar was before. So she was learning equations at an extremely young age because it was life-saving information that we had to learn. It's definitely made me more vigilant with my kids and their health. And we just went through a bout of illness here at our house where my kids caught hand, foot, and mouth disease from their baby sister, their half sister on their dad's side. And this disease that most people have when they're really young, my kids got at 11 and 13. And with diabetes, it was just an extra thing that we had to deal with and making sure that she was okay. So, this day really reminds me that had we lived 100 years ago, my daughter wouldn't still be alive today. Because people, when they were diagnosed with diabetes, it was a death sentence. And it was basically you wait by their bedside until they pass away. And, thank goodness in like the 30s, they invented insulin that we know today that has like saved millions of lives. And thank God for that. But I think about that, there's a lot of people, a lot of babies out there that don't have diseases that can be easily managed, like diabetes, which without management is a death sentence, unfortunately. So I think about this day being a day of reflection for that, but then also a day of thanks for where we are. And then just a great day for us to do like this.
I love it. Love it. So yeah, the management, the being able to, are you back? Oops.
There we go.
Okay. The management I think is awesome, but also like you kind of touched on like the lifestyle and the ability that we have through science, technology, and just the evolution of where we're going with our healthcare, right? I know my husband wears a sensor in his arm so he can just like flag his phone and it read his numbers on his phone and it keeps a graph and then he can like email that or however it gets connected to the endocrinologist. So there is so much in the way of technology, but I think there's also like the fitness and the nutrition and all of that we're learning as well.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And, one of the things that they talk about so much for the kids is making sure that they are aware of their health and nutrition. Because here's one of the things most people don't realize, just because you have type 1 diabetes does not mean you can also develop type 2 diabetes. And there are a lot of people out there living with both type 1 and type 2. So double diabetics, they call them.
Oh my gosh.
And there's a lot of people that don't realize that if you have one or more family members that live with type 2 diabetes, that means that you are automatically more predisposed to developing that disease than someone that doesn't have any family history of type 1 or of type 2. So my mother and both of my living grandparents live with type 2 diabetes, which means that I am absolutely genetically predisposed to developing type 2 diabetes. So I myself am really cognizant of I'm about to be 40. I'm turning 40 in January. And I am really aware now of what my health means for my long-term life expectancy. And I do not want to live life with type 2 diabetes. So I am definitely wanting to make sure that I am taking care of myself through my diet and exercise. And it's a huge motivator for me because, it's like we've said again, it's a slippery slope into, that kind of lifestyle. You're like, oh, I walked last week, this week, I'm so busy. I don't have a lot of time, or I don't have a lot of time to eat healthy. So I'm eating at a lot of places that have drive-through windows, or, we're eating a lot of packaged food at home and not really cooking with fresh, whole foods. Those are things that really make a huge difference. And for me, what I think about is I'm either going to spend the time to take care of myself now, or I'm going to spend the time and the money taking care of myself in the future when I'm really sick.
It's a great perspective.
And it's just not worth it to me to do that. You know, I don't want to live that lifestyle.
Yep. So it is. I completely agree. Like taking the time up front is hugely important so that if we are older, we can enjoy our time of
Right.
Travel and retirement and whatever that looks like.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So Kaili, how would somebody get a hold of you if they're interested in either making donations on National Diabetes Day or even connecting with you or getting within a community?
Yeah, absolutely. And I am more than happy to talk to anybody that has, you know, watched this and, you know, maybe has a child with type 1 diabetes or literally anything. I'm happy to do that. So you can reach me on Facebook and Instagram. On Instagram, Kaili_Harding_Kaminski, Kaili. And then for Facebook, it's Kaili Harding-Kaminski. You can also email me, kbharding@sbcglobal.net. I can be reached any of those ways. So the first name is Kaili, and basically once you type that in, it's really easy to populate to find me. So seriously, send me those messages or send me an email, and I'm very happy to talk with anybody that has, you know, seen this and has additional information, questions. Love to have donations, whatever it is. That would be fantastic.
Thank you so much for sharing your story today.
Thank you.
It takes courage. And I appreciate you having that today for us.
Well, I appreciate that.
Yeah, tonight's event. So if anybody's watching this on November 14th, tonight's event is in Chicago, downtown River North Lateral Fitness. We start at 6 p.m., 2 hours of health, fitness, fun. I'm like just super excited and just kind of want to load the car and go, but I'm patient as well. It's sponsored by Kilo Gear Cut, which is a lifestyle fitness clothing that you wear. It's compression gear with built-in weights. And then Brain Juice is the other sponsor along with Lateral Fitness. And we've got goodies and scavenger hunts and a workout by the, actually found out yesterday, Eric, the owner of Lateral Fitness, I think is going to actually be doing the workout. And the workout will be for people at any level. So some people will find it really easy and other people are going to find it really hard. But the idea is that anybody could work out. We're going to have some healthy snacks and we'll do a mini wellness session. So all you got to do is RSVP and email me, and I'll actually give you a code so you can come for free as a gift for National Awareness for Diabetes Day. All right.
Well, I'm thrilled. I can't wait.
All right. We'll see you tonight. Thank you. I'm going to post this video. And again, if anybody has questions, feel free to contact Kaili or myself. You guys have a great day.
Thank you. Bye.